Welcome to Dating Deja Vu, the podcast where we talk about your patterns, your pitfalls, and personal growth in dating and relationships. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, marriage and family therapist and dating relationship expert. And today we're going to talk about how you no longer need those fixer-upper boyfriends. It's time for turnkey partners, y'all. So if your dating and love life looks a lot of bit of the same, it might be deja vu, but it also might be you. So let's figure it out together. What's up, Deja Crew? Welcome to another episode of Dating Deja Vu. In this episode, we're going to talk about if your version of love sounds like I see the potential in them. They just need someone to believe in them. I can help get them there. You know, if I try really hard, they really want this. I can do it and help them. You're not in love, my dear. You have self-assigned a project to yourself. And so we're going to get real about this today and dive into why you've dated people you need to save. We're understanding how you are no longer the partner. You're the emotional support human, the therapist, the life coach, right? You, again, confuse that chaos with chemistry, which is something we've talked about before, and you believe love means proving your worth. So let's talk about how these patterns form. So where the fixer trap comes into play is childhood roots of growing up and being the strong one or mommy's little helper, maybe the mature one. Oftentimes, this can look a few ways. So you can be the eldest in a sibling group and be put in position to take care of the other kiddos, which to me is craziness. Adults put kids in a position of power and authority, but they don't have the skills to do that. The problem is they usually mess up and get scolded for something they don't have the skills to do. Or if they do well, then they get praised. And then the kid's like, oh, when I'm taking care of others, I'm good. When I'm not, I'm bad. Or you might have a parent who's mentally unwell, addicted, emotionally unstable. So you actually take care of them. I've heard of many stories of people, putting their parents in bathtubs when they're drunk at like 9 years old. So again, you're learning your role is to take care of others. You felt worthy through doing and helping others and maybe even helping others succeed. So if you help your younger sibling get an A in a project, like you feel good about that, right? Who wouldn't? And the problem, though, is that as this grows over time and you are the fixer, the helper, the caretaker, you learn that your love is actually earned through taking care of others and not freely given, which is something I talk about on here often. And my experience with this is my mom really needed my help. Like if I was performing and dancing, I was making her smile and happy, and she would talk a lot about that to other people. But when I was having emotions and being a kid, she wasn't able to respond in a healthy manner. And ultimately, I learned that I had to take care of her needs and her feelings. When I was having my own feelings, I either couldn't express them at all because I was terrified of not receiving what I needed on the other end, or I'd express them at the same velocity as her. And so because of that, you and myself have likely internalized that if I can be good enough, helpful enough, stable enough, maybe I'll find a chosen loved one. So fast forward in my life, I have been Joanna Gaines. I found all the guys who needed all the help. Now, from the outside, they often appeared well put together, genuinely attractive, dressed well, even had jobs. But there were always something that was for me to help them mature or grow in their lives, whether that was getting an education, helping them with their credit, helping them, just become more mature and stop fucking playing video games all the time. And for me, the fixer energy became like overfunctioning. I was so tired. I got so resentful because I was trying to fix them to be the person who could meet my needs rather than meeting my own needs. So what would happen was I would get resentful of them and then treat them really poorly. And then the way that I made up for that is doing something super nice for them. So I want to talk about like signs you're Joanna Gaines, the fixer-upper, fixer dynamic, common red flags. You date potential, not the person in front of you. So my ex-boyfriend, I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a college degree. He was very limited in his career opportunities. Now, he was in a leadership position, but he was stuck there. And ultimately, that wasn't a leadership position from a financial standpoint that would get him to a place where he can afford even, I mean, I remember my friends being like, when are you going to propose to her? And he's like, when I can afford it. Like, what? Um, but he would say he'd go to college, or even like I wanted him to go and work out with me, and he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. Now at the time, yes, workout was yoga, until I, tried all the things. I co-signed on a car for him, or I used my student loans to help for a down payment of a car. I know. I would give him information about schooling. I would encourage him to do it. I would encourage him to work out. It wasn't until I broke up with him, this motherfucker shows up in my yoga class. Yeah, I know. So I did not, I saw the potential of who he could be, but the problem is he didn't see that, and he wanted me to rescue him, right? The next red flag is you feel responsible for their emotions, habits, and progress. So, for me, again, if he was, looking good and acting well, then I was okay. But the funny thing about this individual, the one I'm thinking of particularly, like he would come into my place of work and literally get in arguments with people. And I was just so disgusted by it. I'm doing all of these things to make him the good person, but put a few drinks in him and he was just acting a fool, and that made me look bad. But when he was looking good and he was able to control himself and he was being kind, I looked good. You find chaos exciting, but mistake it for passion. So I want to change the word chaos with unpredictability, even though they can be the same. This Maybe you get this dopamine hit from them doing something in alignment with who you need to take care of you. So you get this dopamine hit. You've been anticipating there's going to be a breakthrough, and you have this small breakthrough. So then your brain is longing for more and anticipates that. And it's working harder and harder to get to that. And then maybe another little small breakthrough happens and you believe, oh my God, we're getting there. No, we're not. I saw this with one client who, this man that she was in a situationship with, he would just breadcrumb her along, and she'd have these small little breakthroughs of him being more vulnerable and intimate with her. And she'd be like, well, he only does that with me, as if she's the reason she created this atmosphere, when really he's probably done this with a lot of women, because he knows if I can just open up just a little bit, that'll keep them around. You tell your friends you don't understand them like I do. Oh my God. All of my friends were like, what are you doing? Get out of there. He sucks. So on and so forth. And it was just like, well, he lets me be me, and he doesn't judge me, and this, and that. I've shared this conversation before. My friend goes, that other people will do that for you, right? And I was like, what? They will? Yes, they will. Okay. So why we stay in these relationships is, again, as we talked about in the love avoidant, fixing gives you a sense of purpose, because that's been your identity. You're a mommy's little helper. You were the mature one. You were the strong one. You were the one to take care of the kids when mom and dad were gone, right? Or take care of the kids when mom couldn't parent or dad couldn't parent. And so your identity, your ability to be seen, heard, loved, paid attention to, was built out of taking care. And so you have this idea that if I can take care of these people and change them, it gives me a sense of purpose, when that is not true. If your purpose is to help people, we need to recognize the extremes of that. It's when we're doing it at the expense of ourselves. And I will tell you, I was doing it at the expense of myself. And I'm going to tell you why. The expense was me not taking that energy I was giving him and putting it back into meeting my needs. Rather than trying to create a man who could meet my needs, I needed to take that energy and put it into myself to meet those needs for myself, right? And that's at the expense of my own growth. Also, I resented them when they couldn't be the man that I needed them to be. And so that was at the expense of myself. I was creating this anger and resentment and hostility towards these men. Another reason why you stay is you feel needed, and that feels like love, right? So again, when mommy needed you to do a task for her, take care of the kids, or, mommy was having a really hard day, so you came along and made her laugh, or you did a little dance, or whatever that is, you felt love, but unfortunately it was conditional. Whereas if mommy's having a bad day, she should still be able to express her love to you. I know when parents listen to this, you're like, well, you don't understand. You don't have children. However, that was a choice, right? That's a choice. And that choice comes with the ability to manage your own emotions and making the choice that not only do I have to manage my own emotions, I have to be able to be unconditionally loving this child at the same time. No, that's a harsh reality, but literally it's the truth. There is a reason I don't have children because my own experience, my own upbringing. We'll maybe talk about that another time. Another reason we stay is their dependency feels like a connection. So that was true for me. It's like they need me. They need me. I'm helping them. I'm helping them. Like, look at us. We're so in love because look how connected we are. I know how vulnerable he is because it's true when they're like, I can't do this or I want to do this. This is my dreams. These are my goals. And you're like, great. Let me help you with that. That is yes, there's a part of that in relationships. We should always want to grow, but there needs to be some agency from the person whose goals it is. That they're not your goals. Your goals are different. I was in graduate school at the time. I was buying my first home at the time. I got my first dog who literally saved my life and got me out of this relationship for the first time. And then I was taking on his goals too, right? And so you have to think that that dependency is dependency. It's not a connection. And another reason why we stay is you're afraid to be with someone who doesn't need you. Now, let me talk about this. This becomes a swing. And I wasn't afraid to be with someone who didn't need me. I wasn't ready for it. I hadn't filled my own wounds of my caretaking wounds. So when I got in front of someone who didn't need me, I went crazy. I was obsessed with him. I was super vulnerable, meaning like I felt very out of my element. I felt lost and I acted crazy. I was like, why are you still on the dating apps? This and that. Now, there were things he did too that caused me to feel that way, but it was like literally like 5 weeks of dating this guy. And you would not even put me in the past relationships and me with this dude in the same, you would not even think they're the same person, how crazy I act. So it's not that you are scared, it's that you don't even have experience with feeling unneeded. So we've got to create that experience by taking care of ourselves. So let's talk about that, how to break the pattern, how this actually works. So first things first, you want to notice when you're kind of attracted to that potential, right? If the person presenting to you doesn't meet your needs right then and there, then we're going to have a problem. Now, if you have this checklist that's like unrealistic, that's a problem. But if you want someone who's a college educated person and they're not a college educated person, don't assume that that's going to happen in the time you're together. Now, that's just one characteristic, but let's talk about another one. If you're someone who is really into health and fitness and that person isn't into health and fitness, that is the person presenting to you, right? Say that they're a person who doesn't like to open up emotionally. And maybe not on the first date, you'll know this, but that's the reality. They're not going to be a person who opens up emotionally. Take what you see. Because remember, on a first date, people are telling you like they're, the highlight reel. They're telling you how great they are. And so if that highlight reel doesn't meet what you want in a partner, then that's the truth. One big one is if someone says they don't want to have kids or if someone says they don't want a relationship, don't try to caretake them into that. Now, yes, as we get older, the kid thing could change, but you don't want to fucking risk that. My husband and I did not want to have children. I probably ended up getting married later because of that reason, but I still stand by it. Now, we want to kind of get to know the narrative in our minds, like start writing, like, what did you witness growing up? How were you seen and heard when you were growing up? What role did caretaking play in your feelings of being loved, seen, heard, paid attention to, having affection, having attention? What role did caretaking play in this? Really get to know yourself and why you've become the caretaker. I can see it through and through. I mean, I used to steal money from my parents to buy things for friends because if I could buy things for them and take care of them in that way, then they would be my friends. I know, terrible. We want to also ask the hard questions. Ask yourself this. If this person never changed from the first few dates, would I still want to be here with them? Great question to ask. If this is my forever, am I okay with that? And I can tell you wholeheartedly with my husband, I was okay with what he presented on the first date with being my forever. And I'll tell you, wonderful thing about that is I got that plus something better because he's evolved in his career. He's evolved even just learning from each other and learning who he is in a relationship. But him at his core is relatively the same. He's very thoughtful, very kind. He's fun. He's very logical. He's very intelligent. He's very responsible with his money and so on. Healthy love isn't about being needed. It's about being valued. So I would say in between this, like in between any of these that I've talked about, we also want to start feeling our own self, start to put in that effort, like I talked about, towards us and meeting the need of loving ourselves. And that can look a lot of ways, but really just connecting with compassion, curiosity, confidence, courage, creativity, connectedness, clarity. There's another one I always miss. And who am I? What do I like to do? What do I enjoy? What makes me feel calm and at peace? What makes me feel loved? And start doing that for yourself. Now, I talked about my dog. She honestly was my first experience with unconditional love. I had to put her down 3 months ago. But she showed me, like, I just love you for you. And I was so lucky to have her for 15 years. Every day, just reminding me, Mommy, you are perfectly imperfect. Even, when I do something silly, you still love me and I still love you. And that was huge for me. So if all else fails, if you can do it properly, get a dog. Sorry, didn't think I would cry on this episode. Fill yourself up. Fill yourself up with that love. Go travel. Go do whatever it is that you want to do. Be the best version of it. Become the best version of yourself through the self, not through anyone else. The mantra for the fixer, it's not my job to carry someone across a bridge that they do not want to walk. That is so important. I've learned that lesson the hard way, even as a therapist, because I was a fixer. Think about it. My job is to help people change their lives. And in the traditional therapeutic sense, that was very hard for me because I hadn't done my own work on myself. They tell you this in graduate school, like being a therapist should go to therapy, but I didn't learn that until I hit rock bottom. And now, because I have such a strong relationship with myself, when my clients aren't seeing the changes that they want to see, I have to realize that there's something in them, a barrier, whether that's a belief or behavior that is actually keeping them from that. And I can continue to support them in that, but it has nothing to do with me because I can't walk them across that bridge. They have to choose to do it. So that's it. The fixer role may feel noble, maybe even romantic, but it keeps you stuck in relationships where you're earning love instead of experiencing it. Now, if this hits you in the gut, I want you to ask, what would it feel like to be loved without having to rescue anyone? Because love should be a connection and not a project. I hope you guys liked today's episode. Please, 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 if you can, thank you for those who have given reviews. We're a brand new podcast. I'd love to get this information out to as many people as possible. We also have a TikTok at Dating Deja Vu Podcast or Pod. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Dating Deja Vu Pod. And we'd love a follow. We'd also love for you, if you haven't already, to subscribe on all channels you find our podcast or on YouTube. So as we've gone through this podcast, I want you to think it might be deja vu, but it also might be you. Talk to you next time.